Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Procopis Show. It is Sunday night, and I'm Procopis, and you're not. So tonight, I'm going to talk about some interesting stuff regarding The Little Mermaid and Disney and the apparent death of creativity as we know it. And I've been talking about this with a lot of stuff. All right, so we got Kimberly and ENC Jordan. How's it going, folks? Thank you for joining me. Ian, let me know if you want a link, if you want to come on. Improv. We're talking about Little Mermaid tonight. Yes, I know, it's so exciting. We just have to talk about the Little Mermaid and all the sparkles. Okay, yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, after all, it is Pride Month. But at any rate, oh wow, I'm betting that's going to kill my video on YouTube. But that's all right. It sometimes happens. But let's get into this. I'm going to actually talk about an article I wrote about a week ago. Me and my friend Sarah decided, let's go check this out, because I was just, I don't know, there was a lot of controversy over the movie. It's got a lot of reviews, and then a lot of bad reviews, and it seems to be tanking at the box office. And it just, I wanted to know what was going on, because I wanted to see, okay, is this real or is this just a knee-jerk reaction? And of course, you've got people playing defense at IMDb, at Disney, and all these places that are trying to say, oh, no, it's because the lead role is black, and that's why it's doing so bad. It's what they call, who was that? Van something or other, used to work for the Obama administration, said it's a blacklash, and in a nutshell, it's not. I watched the movie, and the bad reviews actually have nothing to do with it, and that's what I wrote in my article. But not a lot of people have had a chance to read it, although it's gotten several thousand views now on all over the place, doing really well on Twitter of all places. So my articles do very well on Twitter, most of them, and that's really nice to see. It means Twitter is back to being an open forum where people can have an exchange of ideas. We don't always have to agree. And I know some people won't agree with me on my assessment of The Little Mermaid. I wrote an article on Donald Trump and whether or not he should hang it up and pass on the MAGA torch to someone else. And another one where I kind of went after DeSantis supporters and Trump supporters. Both of them are acting like they've all drank the Kool-Aid, and their prospective candidates are better than the other for whatever reason, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. You can have that. We can have that discussion. That's the way it goes. But let's get into this, because I want to talk about The Little Mermaid. First of all, let me pull up my article here, and then we will read. We'll read it together. I'll read it out to you, because the reason why I'm reading it is because of the fact that I also do my audio on a podcast as well. So this is why I'm going to read it out loud. But you can all check it out at newsundone.com. The article is called Uninspired and Woke, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Disney's The Little Mermaid. And it was written, of course, by yours truly. And in there I write, nowadays there are no depths that Disney won't sink to in their obsessive pursuit of the woke ideology and profit over artistic creativity and originality. We have seen this play over and over in the past several years in movies like the continuation of the Star Wars saga and their Disney Plus streaming program, or their platform. We've seen a lot of that. Nothing makes this more evidence than the live-action copies of some of their biggest animated classics. Not recently, a couple years ago, they did The Lion King. And a couple years after that, they did Aladdin. And, they're doing Beauty and the Beast and Lions and Tigers and Bears on my end. And I'm interjecting in this. I'm paraphrasing some article because I don't want to be bored, make you guys bored. It's bad enough that these live action movies are made in the first place. They are not original content and are made because they've already profited from the same idea. So why not? In other words, they're not doing anything new here. There's nothing different. They're basically not rewriting. Well, some cases are rewriting, but they're creating the movie that's identical to the cartoon. That's not creative. And I said this a couple years ago when The Lion King came out. I went to go see it. I think my son was probably 7 or 8 at the time. And it was boring. The hyper realist characters that are live action, the lions and stuff like that, just had no character, no expression, no nothing, and it really bothered me. So anyway, back to the article. Sure, they might strive to emulate the mannerisms of the former cartoon version, but behind the same title and public facade, they leave behind something very different. The vital creative spark and essence to turn the original animated versions into classics have been brutally erased, leaving behind an empty, uninspired, and emotionless shell of what they once were. In the case of Little Mermaid, it's just another lazy Disney remake. That's what I've been saying. I've been saying this for years now. The only thing they make any real effort to change is awkwardly rewriting iconic moments, hence making it better suited for modern audiences, as they would say. Making sure it adheres to the woke message. That's all it is. Nothing more. If you've seen the animated version, you've seen this movie. Like I mentioned before, nothing's changed. Halle Bailey plays Ariel, the teenage daughter of the overly protective King Triton, who's fascinated by the world above and longs to explore it. When Eric, the young prince of some random island kingdom, they never say where he's from, he almost dies in a shipwreck, Ariel defies her father's warnings and saves his life. Her desire to be part of Eric's world brings her to Ursula, the sea witch, who offers to turn her into a human being in exchange for her voice. Ursula eventually betrays Ariel and turns into a giant sea monster, and finally Ursula is killed, and Ariel and Eric live happily ever after, right? That's basically the gist of it. And in other words, it's not a different story. And here I am, an adult, talking about The Little Mermaid. And here, my friend Sarah and I were both, she's a few years younger than me, but we're in the similar generation. Actually, she's quite a few years younger than me. But we watched this and, clear perspective. And we sat through it all. And I'll get to that as well. All 2 hours and 15 minutes of it. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So, in a nutshell, if everything's the same, if it's the same story, then what's the issue? The Little Mermaid is a case study of why these live-action adaptations are a terrible idea. It is failing at the box office, and Disney has been doing desperate damage control, using racism to rewrite the failure narrative. The movie is failing, and they're blaming it on racism. Disney would have you think the failure is about racist backlash due to casting a black actress to play Ariel. Halle Bailey is a young black girl, and she's got to be like 20 or something like that. And of course they did it. But at any rate, having Bailey as Ariel was controversial and an obvious Disney attempt at wokeness. But blaming her race alone for the Little Mermaid's failure is desperately missing the point. Excuse me. And I'll destroy that false narrative in a bit. But first, let's discuss the actual movie. Seeing all the controversy, I decided to judge myself and took one for the team and actually sat through this latest woke journey from Disney. I really wanted to gauge how much of the criticism was warranted and how much was embellishment. Because clearly our side can embellish as well. Both sides, there's always propaganda, and usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. Well, and I basically said, this is 2 hours of my life that I'm never getting back. Okay, and then I decided to break it up, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So in the good, let's be honest, Halle Bailey was cast as Ariel to send a message and tick a virtue signal box rather than make an honest retelling of the source material. That says she does have a great voice. I'll give her that. She sings all her songs flawlessly. She's got some pipes. The girl can sing. At least I think she's a girl. I'm not a biologist, so what do I know? Okay. The other high point was Melissa McCarthy's portrayal of Ursula. You know, she made Ursula just as delightfully devious as she was in the animated version, and that's, you know, normal. So that was kind of fun to see. Anyway, unfortunately, that was all the good I could find in the monstrosity. And I started getting into the technicalities of it. You know, for starters, it looks like Disney really skimped on the CGI. The colorful underwater world of the animated film was turned into a drearily, poorly rendered, ghastly mess with an occasional hint of color to remind you of how depressing it was. The lackluster CGI and animated characters like Sebastian the crab was dull and lifeless. It's ironic since the attempt was to go for lifelike. The sea creatures were more vibrant in the original cartoon. The relatability, the effervescence, and the expression of the animated creatures were all gone. Even the mermaids kind of moved in an unnatural, choppy motion. And it was, in my opinion, it was a far cry from the mermaids' fluidity and gracefulness that was in the original picture. It's like, I put the analogy, it's like the graphics are created on an old Commodore 64 and they appeared rushed. And was it an effort to keep the costs of the already overexpensive movie down? You know, they were trying, who knows? What makes staring at the crappy CGI even worse is that the movie seemed to last forever. Well, that's because it did. The live action version is almost an hour longer than the original, with nothing substantial added to justify the more extended runtime. Seriously, it was like the original was like 80 minutes, 90 minutes, period. This was over 2 hours and 15 minutes. So it's just slower paced. The dialogue was disjointed. It was all over the place. It just dragged, and the action and transition scenes just seemed to go on and on and on. And even, you know, the sea creatures like Sebastian and the fish, I forget the names, and the bird, they were supposed to be comic relief, but they got a ton of unnecessary screen time. Add to this the mediocre acting, and it all adds to the sense of annoying frustration that left me bored out of my skull. No offense to Sarah, who saw it with me. She was great company, but the movie was boring. You see where I'm going here? I can only imagine how some of the kids who rely on constant pacifications these days were handling the 2 hour mess, 2 hour and 15-minute mess. And anyway, so that was the bad. And now the ugly. We all know Halle Bailey was cast and wasn't for her amazing acting skills, nor for her singing. It was about her race, pure and simple. But it wasn't only her character. This movie was an epic case of woke pandering. Everywhere. There's pandering as far as the eye could see. It was terrible. They went to great lengths to check off as many boxes as possible. Check. the island kingdom Prince Eric is from could only come from the simple mind of a modern woke Hollywood writer. It looks like it was set in a Caribbean location, but most of the people there dressed like 18th century Europeans. To add to the confusion, the island's queen, Eric's mother, is black. Apparently, she rescued him or something. And the prime minister is Pakistani. No matter where or when the setting is, every Disney movie is now more diverse than downtown New York City. In a nutshell. Of course, Eric himself fits into the official mold of resigned, gentle, and easily dominated Disney leading men who lack confidence and charisma and are carefully portrayed so they don't come across as threatening to anyone in the modern audience. Yes, that's right. The modern audience. I wrote something the other day on my phone here, and I just said, strong leading women in movies displaying the same. They don't want men displaying toxic masculinity, but the women in their movies are displaying all those qualities that they find toxic in the men. I don't know where I heard it. I heard it somewhere. I don't know. But this is exactly what's going on. So now back to the audience. The worst part was the covert gender pandering. The writers were careful to obey the golden rule of modern woke writing that no woman can ever be rescued by a man. Ever. The animated version, in the animated version, it was Prince Eric who bravely took control of the ship and steered it into Ursula's chest, just as she was about to kill Ariel, thus saving her life. That was the cartoon. The front of the boat had that pointy thing on the end of it and drove it right into her chest and killed Ursula. Well, those antiquated ideas of heroic let's try that again. Those antiquated ideas of heroic masculine self-sacrifice have no place in the modern woke Disney movie, where all the women are portrayed as invisible, hardcore badasses who don't need to stinking help from no stinking man. In this version, Ariel takes control of the ship and saves the day. All this while apparently having zero experience with how ships actually work. She's a mermaid. Hello. So what? None of that matters because Ariel is a strong, independent young woman who doesn't need some toxic man to help her because she can save herself, damn it. Why? Because of feminism. Oh, I even said damn it there. Oh, well. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm talking while reading and I'm interjecting myself. And this is to say nothing about the fact that Disney is killing the whole idea of romance in general. And that's a whole nother subject. So, as I said before, Disney wants to divert the narrative away from how truly awful this movie was by saying that its failure is about racist backlash. This is completely false. Disney and their friends in the liberal media tried to say that it's toxic racists who are out there review bombing because they hate black people. They're basically trying to mess up the reviews, Rotten Tomatoes, and all those different sites that do all this rating in an effort because they don't like the fact that they cast a black woman as Ariel. Well, in the cartoon, the original adaptation, she was a white redhead. Not that I honestly think in this case it really doesn't matter. If the character fits, I don't care what race they are. Whatever. It doesn't matter as long as they act good. But less than a week after this movie was released and started to fail and they started circling the wagons, it's racism, it's racism, it's racism. Well, that narrative was completely crushed. They forgot that the very next week, the big release was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, #2. Another movie led by a black actor and is also geared toward families, the same demographic Disney is targeting. And unfortunately for the race hustlers at Disney and in the liberal media trying to spin this narrative, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is demolishing the box office right now. And it still is. This is, a couple weeks later now. 2 weeks later, I think. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse only has $1 million budget. And they were able to pull this off. I think Mermaid has to make something like 250, 300 million just to break even. And it might not even do that. Maybe it's like 400 million. With the amount of money that they spent, I can't figure out why they couldn't have better CGI, like I talked about before. So this is obviously the false narrative destroyed. In a nutshell, the Little Mermaid remake is absolute garbage. Even if the lead was a redheaded white girl, it just was garbage. The lack of creativity at Disney in order to push a political agenda is destroying the brand. The movie is a microcosm of this. The movie's only real accomplishment will be showing the world that Disney will soon be joining Bud Light and Target on the trash heap of woke failures, while at the same time creating a surge in support for the original animated movie. Literally, that is all they will achieve from this absolute garbage of a mess. And it's... Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. And Ian says the Spider-Verse is an original story too. That was weird. Everything fell apart. I bumped everything so I could get my. There we go. My camera understands gestures, so I can. And I think it caught me for a second. So anyway, we have this going on. It's live. It's a live show, so deal with it. But we're in a situation where they're looking for race to be the answer for everything in their little woke world. And in this case, it's not. The movie just sucks. Pure and simple. It sucks. Yes, and it's because they're trying to do all this woke garbage. They're doing it with the Star Wars. I talked about Star Wars before. Kathleen Kennedy, she's the woke queen of Disney. Here awoke, there awoke, everywhere awoke. It's, I don't know. She just destroyed Star Wars. My childhood hero, Luke Skywalker, was turned into this old curmudgeon who, and that's what's happening is all these leading ladies in all these movies. I mean, if you remember, you have some of the women roles, because right now, got men taking over women's sports. And my camera is moving on me. There. Now I think it's good. Good. Now it's not following me. But you got these women doing. They're losing traction because men are taking over their sports and stuff like that. And they're trying to make women into, we're physically better and we could do everything. When you look at some of the more recent movies, the superheroes in there, like Captain Marvel and some of these, there's no character development. Or like in Star Wars, character Rey, who eventually became Rey Skywalker, there's no character development. They're automatically perfect. They're badasses. They can do everything. They can use the Force. You look back at Star Wars, Luke had to go through failure, through loss. He even lost his arm, and then the tragedy of discovering that his nemesis is his father and all that stuff. I hope I didn't ruin that for anybody. But there was this character development over the arc of the first three movies. And it's just not happening now. Their women just are automatically good. They can fight. You look at the Wakanda, the warrior women, and there was a movie, I forgot what her name was. I think it was The Warrior Queen, that was the name of the movie or something like that. And in the movie, she's taking on this guy. She's like 5'4", and this guy's got to be 6'8". I mean, if I were to meet him, I remember when I was a kid, I got to meet Ernie Holmes. He was one of the Pittsburgh Steelers, as part of the Steel Curtain. Back in the days, football players weren't paid as much, and so some of them would wrestle over the off season. So my dad's bar in New Mexico sponsored wrestling, so we had Ernie Holmes there. The guy was gigantic. He had to have been 6'5", 6'6", and 300 pounds easily, or whatever. Well, that's what this woman was fighting in this Warrior Queen movie, and he punched her, and she was able to just shake it off. When there are physical attributes about bone structure, bone density, and stuff like that, the difference between men and women, the pelvis in our skeletons is different. So the male pelvis cannot push a child through, at least according to biology. You got, I guess you got to trust the science. But it's unrealistic. But you go back a few years when the antagonist goes after some of these leading women, and they were strong women as well, but they're not strong women just to be strong women. They're actually strong because they're able to do something, but they had to use tools. What was her name? Was it Sigourney Weaver? From the Alien franchise. She was a strong, powerful woman, but she got beaten up, taken down. I mean, they were just everything. Or Terminator. I think they used Terminator movies. Sarah Connor, the Sarah Connor character. She was a sniveling. She was, not sniveling. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but she was just an ordinary woman. And here's this guy trying to save her, who ends up getting her pregnant, and the rest is history. And she's the mother of the guy of John Connor, who would save humanity against the machines or whatever. And she actually had to develop over the course of a movie or two. And I guess the downside is she came back and the character was completely rewritten. I mean, obviously that's not a Disney movie, or was it? I don't think it is. But you look at the entire Disney franchise has gotten screwed up. Even The Mandalorian started out really good, and then the last season completely destroyed it again. The only good, strong female lead in there, they fired her because she's not liberal, in a nutshell. And that's what's happening. And we're seeing this with everything related to Disney. They're woking everywhere. Here awoke, there awoke, everywhere awoke, and it's frustrating. And they're doing this and sacrificing creativity. Like Ian said earlier about Spider-Man being an original idea. There's not an original idea. They're just like, oh, we'll make some more money on redoing this, redoing that. It was just nothing. Back when the cartoon Little Mermaid was released. The cartoon Lion King was released. Whoopi Goldberg was phenomenal as lending her voice to the hyenas or whatever. And, James Earl Jones as Mufasa. Mufasa. Oh, that name's scary. Mufasa. Say it again. Ooh, Mufasa. Ooh. He has a big booming voice. He was Darth Vader and stuff like that. But all the characters, and they could be animated in such a way that they had all this expression in their faces that the live action ones just don't have. And I think kids need to see the exaggerated features. They don't need to see realism. It's like the cartoons, they're entertaining. They kind of learn from them and stuff like that. But, we didn't have to have warning labels. I knew not to go get a big steel anvil and drop it on the head of some coyote, or, grab one of my dad's guns and shoot someone because I saw Yosemite Sam do it to Bugs Bunny. But these cartoons are caricatures. They aren't reality. And I think kids understand that, but it helps them develop and grow. It's one of the things that, unfortunately, COVID destroyed in some of these younger kids. They were infants during COVID when their moms were wearing a mask on their face. And this is how we communicate through facial expression. They don't understand words at that point, that early on, and they lost that development time. So I hope we can get it back over time, but we'll see what happens. It's really sad what's happened to Disney. Are there no original ideas there anymore? They are literally doing another Pirates of the Caribbean. They've already done 4 or 5 of them. And the last one, I don't think had Johnny Depp in it. I don't know. I didn't bother watching it. And then they're doing this wokeness, useless stuff like, what was the movie? Willow. Willow was a collaboration between Disney and Lucas, George Lucas. And Ron Howard was the other director. I think he did that with him. Val Kilmer was in it. It was a bunch of characters. There's a dwarf, Warwick. Oh gosh, what's his name? His name's escaping me right now. And the head dwarf was brought back in the new TV series that they have on Disney Plus. And I sat through it hoping it would get better. And it didn't. It was awful. They spent more time developing the lesbian character who shared her lesbian kiss. And that was all they cared about. And it's not the fact that it was a lesbian kiss. I don't care. But it's the fact that it was thrown in there for the sake of throwing it in there. There was no conflict. There was no need to have that in there. It didn't go with it. Like my son and I have been watching the Ted Lasso series on Apple TV, another kind of woke company that's doing some woke stuff and all that. Ted Lasso, okay, it's on its 3rd season. It just finished it off. It's actually a really good series. It's funny. It's emotional. It's got a lot of stuff in there. It's got a lot of the messages. And this season they brought in the gay message, and I actually think they approached it in very well. They one of the soccer players was in the closet, so to speak, and he was gay. And there were one of the girlfriends of one of the other guys. She was also a supermodel or something like that, and then her emails got leaked and a bunch of nude pictures and videos got out and whatever. So they tell you, clear everything off your phones now. So they're all clearing stuff, and the guy didn't. The gay guy who decided to go into another room and do it. His friend went in there and said, "What's going on?" He grabbed his phone and looked at it. Well, as I mentioned, the guy was in the closet. He didn't tell anyone. So turns out his friend was pissed at him, and I couldn't figure out why. At first, I was trying to figure out, okay, where are they going with this? Is he grossed out by it? Over the course of a couple episodes, and there was a soccer game they were having at one of the away stadiums, and this guy started going, and he used a derogatory term toward gay guys, and this friend of his, the friend of the gay guy, went after the guy and started hitting him, or trying to fight with the guy. He got kicked out of the game, whatever. And then later on, he goes to the guy's house, and he said apparently these guys had been friends since they were young, and he was mad at him for not telling him. And the way they approached it, and he finally came out to all his teammates, and it was done in a tasteful way. It wasn't it had context because this is real life. People go through this in real life, and it brought it. And the teammates are like, "Yeah, okay, so you're gay. You're still our teammate, and you're still our friend. Whatever, blah blah blah." We just move on from it, and we don't ignore it. We just acknowledge it, and it's part of who you are, or whatever. And of course, they had, one of the female characters experimenting with another female, and whatever. It just kind of went in there, but it wasn't over the top. Like, okay, we're just going to put this gay person in front of you for no apparent reason. But that's what Disney's doing. I'm actually surprised Apple didn't do that. But it's gotten so bad that the wokeness is killing the creativity. If they had cast a different actress for Little Mermaid, who is still black but happens to have some acting talent, maybe I'd think different. If the movie was good, I would think different. It really has nothing to do with race, but they literally picked this girl because of her race, and that's sad. But, maybe they took her singing skills into consideration. Like I mentioned, she has a beautiful voice. She's able to sing. She nailed every number. And it's just sad that it's coming to that. And, Disney is supposed to be about imagination, and they're not imaginative anymore. They don't need to do social woke political messages in their movies. What they need to do is create stories. These are fantasy worlds anyway. Why do we need real lions? Why do we need real fish and real crabs when the cartoons ones were so well done? I mean, even go back in time. Let's say Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The animation was absolutely horrendous because of the technology of the time. Judging it by today's standards. But you look at it, and the dwarves had the facial expressions, and they were caricatures. They weren't trying to be. They were exaggerated in there. And then the witch, the one who tried to kill Snow White, and all that stuff, she was exaggerated. And then when she was the little old lady, she was the chronologically gifted woman. I don't want to be offensive, I'm assuming she's a woman because, once again, I'm not a biologist. But we're losing the creativity, and I think kids are going to be hurt by it. I think because of the fact that we were able to do animation, that's what made Disney. That's what made the Peanuts cartoons. That's what made all these different companies do so well. The animation, like Monsters Inc. or what's that, Pixar. But I think Disney owns Pixar now. So I'm sure there's going to be an underlying message in all their movies. Well, they did it with Buzz Lightyear. They had so much to the point that my daughter, who happens to lean a little more liberal, one of my daughters, she was questioning what the point was of having the... Oh, my camera's doing that again. Sorry. I talk with my hands. It's a Greek thing. I don't know. And my hand gestures are affecting my camera. So I got to turn that off, I think. Good to know. Sorry, first time I'm using this equipment. So I'll do better next time, I promise. So, but I wanted, before I end tonight, I wanted to talk about something that on a different note. Because I think part of our problem, or part of Disney's problem with the lack of creativity, and maybe we just lost creativity in Hollywood. I mean, in general, you look at it, it's all woke, it's all garbage, there's very little good content coming out of there, very little original content. Maybe that's why I like Ted Lasso so much, because it's an original content, an original film, or original series. We're in like Superman 17 or Batman 24, or, it's just, I'm sure there'll be another Jaws movie coming out or something like that, or yet another Jurassic Park. Yes, the dinosaurs were cool, in 1983, I think that's what it was, and I went to go see it with my aunt and uncle. We went to go see Jurassic Park, and it was so cool. Then they brought Jurassic Park 2, and it sucked. There's a point where you don't need to, it's a good idea. You don't need to milk it for everything you have. Come up with a new idea. It's like, okay, we need to change the lead character from a male to a female. Okay, instead of, like in Star Wars, instead of making the main character a female for the sake of her being female, and mind you, Princess Leia was a pretty strong-willed character in the original Star Wars. But it wasn't so over the top. She was just smart, intelligent, beautiful. I had a major crush on Princess Leia, especially in Return of the Jedi, in the Jabba the Hutt scenes. But Rey is more... The character of Rey is more, I don't know. We just gotta stop. We gotta stop and think about it. But it's our own fault because we're paying money for that crap. And we're losing sight of the simple things because it's gotten so complicated. Everything has to be a political message. And that's why I struggle with this. But there was this is going to go in a completely different direction then. So go see The Little Mermaid if you want, but save the money. I really don't think you should bother watching it. I took one for the team. Me and my friend Sarah took one for the team. And pardon me, I'm a little dry in here. So I'm going to go back to here. And this is an article that I talked about, I want to talk about tonight. Joshua Bell. He's a world famous violinist. And there was something he did. I'm going to read the story a little further down. And Washington, they did a social experiment. And this is what happened. Washington posted it. Joshua Bell is one of the world's greatest virtuosos, one of the biggest names in classical music. In 2007, he did something anonymous as a little social experiment to see what might happen. And I want you guys to listen to this a little bit. So Washington Post joined Bell in his tuneful test. Ahead of the experiment, the newspaper quizzed the American conductor Leonard Slatkin about his predictions. And Slatkin said, out of 1,000 people, my guess there might be 35 or 40 people who will recognize the quality for what it is. Maybe 75 to 100 will stop and spend some time listening, and Slatkin thought Bell might make $150 from his musical Metro endeavors. Basically, he was going to go to the Metro and play violin for a time and see how many people paid attention. It was at a train station, so people going in the hustle and bustle, they're moving fast, and you just want to see how many people would pay attention. It was 7:51 a.m. on Friday, the February 12th in 2007. This is a while ago, but it still applies today. In the middle of the morning rush hour, when baseball cap Bell opened his violin case and started playing just inside El Infante Plaza Metro entrance in the busy center of Washington, D.C. Watch what happened below. They had a video, and you can go check it out. Over a period of 43 minutes, the violinist performed 6 classical pieces, 2 from Bach, 1 Massenet, and another from Schubert and Ponce. Out of 1,095 people who passed by Bell while he was playing, 27 gave him money. Only 7 actually stopped and listened for any length of time. In total, Bell made about $52.17. That includes a $20 note from somebody who recognized him. $32.17 for Joshua Bell. This is not exactly what we might have expected. The surprising result of the experiment went viral and is shared around the world. Some people see the sorrowful tale of just who walked by, too busy and too preoccupied and too uncurious or simply disinterested in the best that classical music had to offer. Perhaps it just is what it was. The precious 40-something minutes there was music being played, made among us, as it is every day, whether it be from Joshua Bell or a future Joshua Bell, but not quite Joshua Bell, who loves the music just the same. Many also thought it would be a very valuable reminder about the classical music talent of buskers and informal performers, the ones who are around us in the train stations and stuff like that. So he did this social experiment, and I wish I had grabbed a better version of the article. I found it in my haste. I wasn't going to cover it, but there was something about it. Out of all those people who stopped, most of them were young children. Think about that for a minute. Oh, incidentally, the violin he was playing on was worth like $1.2 million. It was an amazing old instrument that had it. And the night before, he was at a sellout show for like $150 a ticket. And that was from standards, 12 years ago, 15 years ago. And that same guy is sitting in the subway and nobody's paying attention to him, except for a couple children. See, I think we need to go back to seeing the world through the eyes of children again. I think we become so cynical and so into our lives, we don't take time to appreciate the idea of beauty, beautiful music, beautiful flowers, beautiful mountains, beautiful people. And I'm not talking in a sexual way. I'm just talking appreciating humanity and the beauty of it. We're not making time for that. Where children see the world through unscathed eyes. They're fresh. They haven't been jaded, so to speak. And I think that's where we've got to take the time to pause. Stop with the rat race a little bit. Because in the end, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. It's important. Pause. Take time. I might actually write an article based on that experiment because it's important. And I might do a video just strictly on that article. Just do a quick 10-minute video and talk about it. Because, man, we need something because the world has gotten beyond cynical. And we're at the point where it just doesn't matter anymore. Like our political world, who wins, who loses? Will it be DeSantis? Will it be Trump? Will it be Biden, God forbid? Will it be RFK Jr.? Or will it be someone who comes out of the middle of nowhere? When you look back at 2004, Barack Obama came out of nowhere. Read his speech at the National Convention, and suddenly he got prodded to run in 2008 and won out of nowhere. And that speech that he gave at that Democrat convention that year was a great speech. Very conservative, in fact. Very unifying. I wish he had adhered to the principles in that speech. But instead, and that was the same speech he used for his acceptance in 2008, I wish he'd used the ideals in that speech to govern. But here we are. But we can't let go of the simple things because somebody jacked everything up. Because those simple things, like listening to beautiful music, watching something with some creativity in it, for crying out loud, from Hollywood and places like this, the places that they're supposed to be created, this is what they do. But they're not doing it. They have a responsibility to do that. So we have an escape from the world to decompress. Go out and take a walk. I mean, hell, during COVID, Tony Evers wouldn't allow the state parks to be open. So we couldn't even go to the state parks to decompress during COVID. We couldn't go outdoors. It was stupid. But we need to take the time to do that. Otherwise, we're going to lose everything. Decompress, recharge, get ready for the battles ahead. And, I'm obviously a conservative. I vote for Republicans 99 times out of 100, although I voted for David Clark. And then there was a time I voted for Ross Perot back in the day. But we need to stop seeing the Democrats as the enemy. There are good people who are Democrats. And Republicans alone are not going to fix this shit. Democrats alone are not going to fix this shit. Sorry, I'm swearing, but it is what it is. And I'm not bound by the FCC, so there. Yeah. All right. But we need to get out of this dichotomy of we, they. We're supposed to be, the same family here. And when you look back at these people that want to say, oh, well, maybe we should just have a civil war or divide the country into conservative states and liberal states. Okay, all right. So what are you going to do with that 20% of conservatives who actually support abortion? At least to some extent. Or the flip side. What are the Democrats going to do for all those liberals who are against abortion? That's just one subject. Just pick any subject, and you're going to get people from there. There's just no way to divide the country in an amicable way. You got all the big cities where all the liberals are, and that the population saturation determines it for the rest of the state. So maybe we need to start dividing some states. It's happening in Idaho. There's in Oregon, several counties have voted to secede from Oregon so they can go to become part of Idaho. And they might approve it. I mean, it's several counties that have approved it, so we'll see what happens. Maybe we need to do that. Maybe we need to divide California. Maybe we need to be, instead of 50 states, we could be 100 states. Maybe we've gotten too big to be managed by 536 people. Well, actually 545 if you count the Supreme Court. Maybe we need to have more states so we have more senators. Change the terms. House of Representatives should be 4-year terms and do half the House every 2 years. And then keep the Senate at 6 years. I think 2 years is too short. I don't know if that'll matter, but it won't happen. In the end, this is the hand we're dealt. Yeah, Christine, I know that's an interesting point. So we should grow government. I think we need to shrink the bureaucracy. But I think we're putting too much faith in just a handful of people when we need to maybe expand that a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is anymore because it's not working with this. And the opposite would be reducing the size of that. And we're already on the verge of anarchy. We just need to figure it out. But yeah, the bureaucracy is a big problem. That's the big government part. It's not the legislature or the executive branch that's technically big government. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Well, anyway, folks, show is over. It is at about an hour, and I wanted to keep these shows at about an hour. So thank you for watching. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for commenting. And we will talk soon. I hope I saved you from having to go see The Little Mermaid. Not that you were going to see it anyway. I just really wanted to know what all the hubbub was about. So it was. Thank you to Sarah for joining me. It was, as we thought. The movie just sucked. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have an awesome night. And remember, catch newsundone.com. Got some other things happening. There's more. Tim Michaels has filed suit against Bob Donnell. So more to come on that. And, Bob Donnell opened up a Pandora's box. Be careful what you wish for. You might get it. And he's going to get it. All right. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.